Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bear Down Ballers here on the Field of 68 Media Network. I'm Ryan Wall, joined as always by Jordan Pollock, and Arizona has moved to 19-0, 6-0 in conference play. We'll get into their wins over UCF and Cincinnati. We'll preview their upcoming games against West Virginia and BYU this week. But first, Jordan, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I hope everybody is able to get someplace warm over this next weekend. A lot of the country is going to be experiencing some crazy storms. I'm in Illinois right now, northern Illinois, and the high for tomorrow, which will be Friday, we're recording Thursday night. Tomorrow, Friday, which would be the 23rd of January, the high is 0 degrees without the wind chill. So I hope everybody's able to stay warm and stay safe.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is just absolutely brutal. From the coldest of cold to a very warm climate to Tucson, Arizona, we move to talk about the Arizona Wildcats. And they once again had two big victories, but very different ones because they beat UCF 84 to 77 by 7 points, but then they beat Cincinnati by 26 points. We'll start off with their victory over UCF this past Saturday. Arizona won by 7, as I mentioned. They had five players finish in double figures, with Jaden Bradley leading the way with 23 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He was just terrific in this one. What were your takeaways from this win over the Knights?
Yeah, I was really impressed by UCF. They just seemed to like not go away. They kind of kept it pretty consistently in the 5 to 10 point range where they're just kind of always trailing, and it seemed like Arizona would kind of get in a rhythm and UCF would be able to hit a big three, get it and one, kind of kept it close. But the biggest thing for me, I thought, was definitely the amount of times Arizona was able to get to the free throw line. They doubled them up with 33 attempts compared to UCF's 14 attempts. And that was like, I thought the big separator that Arizona was able to get, especially like able to get points from the charity line and not have to at least get as many shots up, because that was also a difference. UCF had to put up 15 more shots, and so they were a little less efficient overall from the field than Arizona was in this game.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Jaden Bradley throughout this season, his ups and downs, because he has had some pretty high highs, some low lows. He's been a little inconsistent at times, but when he's been on, he really has just shown that has the potential to be the best guard in the country on any given night. He is that good. And he scored 23 points, like I previously mentioned. That was his highest total that he's scored since Arizona's first game of the season back against Florida. So just a monster kind of performance from him. And as you mentioned, he was one of those leaders from the free throw line. He led Arizona with 11. He was 11 for 13, and that was a big contributor to his 23-point total. And yeah, I love seeing him when he's aggressive. He's drawing contact. He's getting to the line. He is a good free throw shooter. So I really think that's a big addition to his game when he is aggressive. And this was one of those games where Arizona's backcourt, their elite backcourt that we always mention, Jaden Bradley, the freshman Braden Barries, they were just excellent in this one. Braden Barry's 18 points on 8 for 14 shooting from the field. He didn't really do a ton else, but scoring the ball, he just showed his dynamic scoring ability from all different levels on the floor. Made two 3-pointers. He's so smooth with the ball, and he really just is a special talent, and it's really fun to watch this duo play. What'd you think of them in this one?
Yeah, agreed. Especially combining 41 points, shooting over 50% combined together. That's super elite from your backcourt tandem, especially while still not really turning the ball over too much when they're getting a majority of the ball handling. Only three combined turnovers, and Jaden Bradley added two steals, so that's only -1 in that turnover to steal ratio. These guys are continuing to play well, and especially with UCF's kind of length is kind of surprising because I wouldn't say that Jaden Bradley and Barry's are like I feel like they're pretty sizable for their position. I think they're about like 6'4", 6'5". And so that's like it's not super short, but it's not tall. So for them to be able to still continue to get in the paint, and that's where Jaden Bradley does a lot of his work is in the paint and in the mid range. And so that's super impressive to see how they can still able to contribute against a team that has a little bit more length on the defensive end.
For sure. We've seen throughout the season when Berries and Bradley are on their A game, not just UCF, who it was a good team and and has had a good season. They're not going to be able to keep up with them, but anyone will struggle to defend them on offense, especially another player for Arizona who had his fourth double-double in this one. That's Mo Krivas, 17 points, 12 rebounds, 2 steals. He just was so good in this one. 6 for 9 from the field, 4 free throws as well. I mean, Mo Krivas just continues to surprise and to just it really is great to watch his progression to be a guy that can fill the stat sheet like this because he is just becoming more consistent, it seems like, throughout the season as the Big 12 season progresses, as Arizona plays better teams. He just seems to be playing better. And, it's just great to see because when he's playing like that, he really is the anchor in the front court that Arizona needs.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he's very quietly having like a first team Big 12 kind of year with just how much he's turning out these double doubles. But I think the fact that we have another elite front court guy on our bench, I think is probably taking away some of his fire, which is how great of a rebounder Awaka is as well. I know he struggled to stay on the court in this game a little bit towards the end. He did foul out with 5 fouls. But these guys are just a monster duo.
Yeah, Toby Awaka only played 27 minutes, as you said, that he did foul out, but he had 10 points, 9 rebounds. He made 6 free throws. He had a steal and a block also. And we've raved and talked so much about just how big of an impact and how big of a part he's played for this Arizona team this season. And yeah, I think you can make an argument that minute for minute in college basketball, there's not many guys that make a bigger impact than Toby Awaka. It doesn't matter if he plays 12 minutes, 15 minutes, or 25 minutes. This guy, Toby Awaka, will just continue to make an impact and continue to stand out and make sure his fingerprints are all over the game. So I was really impressed with that. With the backcourt and the front court are just they're really just two of the best duos I've seen in the sport today. Anything else? Did anything else stand out to you, Jordan, in this game, or anything else you took away from it?
I think, especially where we were at a few weeks ago, UCF, I think it's their best start they've ever had in their program's history, or at least in the last like decade almost. We had a lot of hype that we thought UCF could be even ranked for this game, and still, I know they had 2 other losses right before this in conference play, but I still don't want to take an aspect away of like having the number 1 seed come into your home court. Like that brings a different kind of energy, and it definitely seemed like that was very present there. And so, especially in college basketball, just like there's some teams where it just feels like anything can happen at any time. So for Arizona to be able to go in there, they've never been in there. So to go in there for the first time, number 1 ranked, and be able to come out on the other end with the win, with and just how much UCF just kept battling. They really wouldn't go away. I thought it was a huge plus for Arizona, especially on the other side of the country. Like how many times have they even played in Florida, for being honest?
Yeah,
So
and yeah, so something else I love from this game is towards the end, that second half of the second half, you saw the game get closer and it got within 10 points. And you saw that UCF was pressing and they were adding more pressure on defense to Arizona. And the crowd started to get into it a little bit. And I just love to see because Arizona in a tight game and in a closer game because we talked about previously when they were blowing teams out. back in the beginning and up until the new year, basically, they didn't have a lot of close games, and especially in a while because they're before their 7 point win over Arizona State, which was only by 7 points. I mean, that was the first time they've had a game under 10 points in a couple of months. So yeah, it was great to see
Almost under
our
19. They had a streak of blowing teams out by 19. It was
yeah.
felt for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, they did it, and now since then, Arizona won 3 games by 13 points, by 7 points twice, but then they followed it up with a monster 26-point victory against Cincinnati, and let's get into that one because although I say a 26-point victory, it was a game of it was a tale of two halves because the first half Arizona was up 33 to 27 and the game was even tied with a couple minutes left in the first half. It was that close, but then in the second half it was all Arizona, 44 to 24 in the second half. Arizona outscored Cincinnati, and Arizona had 4 scorers in double figures in this one. Mo Krivos once again led the Wildcats with 17 and 9. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, like you said, tale of two halves. 6 point lead Arizona went into the half with and just outscored them by 20 in the second half, 44 to 24. Definitely a tale of two halves. And I was pretty surprised how well Cincinnati came out. They got down quick, but they fought their way right back. And it just kind of felt like this game, like I raved about Cincinnati's defense and like holding Arizona to 33 points in the first half. I was pretty impressed by that. And even more so Cincinnati being able to score 27 in that first half. Like that it felt like if the pace was going to stay at that and their defense intensity was going to stay that high, it's like, okay, this is the kind of game that Cincinnati wants this to stay. But pretty much the second Arizona was able to get into a rhythm, and even the first 10 minutes of that second half, it was still kind of felt back and forth. But I think it was right around the 8 minute mark in the second half when Arizona just kind of blew the lid off. They kept it around 10 a majority of that second half, but right about then, Arizona was able to get some transition baskets, and Cincinnati just had a few possessions where they weren't able to get quality shots, and that's where Arizona just kind of blew the roof off.
Yeah, Arizona earlier in the year, they held Northern Arizona to 49 points. They did hold San Diego State to just 45 points, but holding a conference opponent like Cincinnati to just 51 points is really just spectacular. The defense was the star of the show in this one because they held Cincinnati to 30% shooting from the field, 19% shooting from deep, and although Arizona themselves didn't shoot it that great, they still shot it better than they did, 43% from the field, 23% from deep, and the crazy part about it is Arizona held 4 of their 5 starters to just 9 points, or not 9 points, to just 12 points in this one, and that is really just a crazy thing because Baba Miller had 14, was their lone starter in double figures. They had 2 guys scoring double-digit points, but yeah, I just think Arizona's pressure from the start to the end was the one thing on defense that stood the test of time because Arizona, if we're being flat out honest, they weren't great on offense at all. They struggled just as much as Cincinnati did, especially in that first half. But this is something that I've continued to state throughout the season. Teams can test Arizona, can try to kind of admit their defensive will on Arizona, but the longer the game goes, this Arizona team will find a way to win and will find a way to pull away, and that's just what they did in this one. Even Tommy Lloyd said after the game, it wasn't the prettiest game, but that's kind of what separates this team, and I agree.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was Thanos that said like fight from it, run from it, but in the end, like still destiny's gonna happen. And it kind of feels like a lot of these games, like that's kind of what it's going down to. Like these other Big 12 coaches, they're putting some good game plans against Arizona, but still it comes to a point where Arizona's going to figure out a way. And especially we talked about the game before UCF, Bradley and Berries combined for 40. They combined for 20 in this game. Bradley wasn't really great at all by any means from the field, 2 of 10. Braden Berries was right behind him, 3 of 11. And it felt like pretty much the separator in this game was Cuevas again, the leading scorer, 17 points, just under a double-double with 9 rebounds. But it's just the depth that this team has and the different guys that can show up randomly every single night and not even randomly. And that's the crazy thing about it. It's like Krivas, like he'll have a consistent run and then we'll get Bradley that'll have a consistent run, and then we'll get Berries that has a consistent run. And it's so much like, oh well, he's playing terrible. It's like, well, he's hot, so might as well just give him the shots. And that's just such a premium that even exists nowadays in college basketball.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Having Brady Parries and Bradley, like you said, combined for 5 for 21 from the field and still winning by 26 points is just, it really is just, I'm just speechless, really. It's hard to put that into words. But yeah, as you said, it's all the other pieces. It's guys, even when they don't shoot it particularly well, like Braden Berry's 3 for 11, he still had 12 points, 10 rebounds. It's his second game of his collegiate career where he's had double-digit rebounds as a guy who's only 6'4". Really, he really is one of the best rebounders from a smaller guard that I can remember, especially as a freshman. He really makes a huge impact. And Koa Pete added 13.6 rebounds. And another guy that we've talked about, but is still flies under the radar, is Ivan Karchenkov. 14.6 for 11 from the field, 2 rebounds, 2 steals. And when I watch him, I see so many shades of Pelle Larsson, and it's not the shooting because Pelle Larsson was more consistent of a shooter, but it's just the impact that they make, crashing the boards, being active on defense, getting rebounds, scoring the ball inside. Just so many of the things they do well. I really see signs of Pella in Karchenkov.
Yeah, completely agree. Like it's a okay. Dirty player, not in the essence of like he's making dirty plays and trying to get guys hurt, but like he's just going to do the dirty work. He's going to work his butt off inside. He's going to battle for rebounds. He's going to battle for loose balls. He's going to hustle up and down the court. Like he's kind of your prototypical like what every coach wants out of a player. And you really can't have enough of those guys. And with his measurables and how well he's able to shoot the ball, handle the ball, how great of an IQ he has, still being able to be in the right place at the right time to continue to be in passing lanes and get these steals. It's really truly an immeasurable kind of stat to have for a guy that can do that. I wouldn't even know. Like, would you say he's like the worst starter on the team? Probably, and that's just because he's not a 5-star. He's not a guy that's been in the program for 3+ years. He's not on preseason watch lists. Like, and that
I
and that
think I think you could say that like statistically, but there's also nights where he could be a top three most valuable player, and even like a night like this, if I'm kind of grading the players, I think he's was in the top three most valuable best players for Arizona, and I think that just gets back that we keep harping on the beauty of this team is that I don't think they have a set pecking order. It's really just as simple as whoever is hot on that night they're gonna get the ball and they're gonna get more opportunities.
Yeah, I think valuable is probably like I love that word that you use, and I think that's probably the best thing to do because like he just gives them so many options. Like he's the guy on the court that you keep on the court, whether you're going big with two bigs, you're going small where you're moving Koa Pete to the 5. Like he's staying on the court through all of that because of his size and how quick he is, and just he can defend so many different positions. So like I think valuable is probably the best word that I would use, and a majority of that is defensively. but the fact that he can score and not in this game, but like he has shot the long ball pretty well this year. That just makes him invaluable almost, you know.
Yeah, I pray and I hope that he stays at Arizona for a couple years because that guy is just going to be a superstar in a couple years. But let's move on, Jordan, and talk about Arizona's next game, Saturday, January 24th. It's on CBS. We've been hoping for Arizona to get on national TV at a normal time. It's noon in Tucson, but it's 2 p.m. on the East Coast on CBS. National TV. It's Arizona. It's West Virginia. And Arizona's 4-3 in the all-time series against West Virginia. And this is the first time that Arizona is hosting West Virginia in a game since December of 1992. And Arizona is 2-0 against West Virginia back at McCall Center. What do you think about this matchup against West Virginia?
Yeah, I think this West Virginia team, it's their first year post the DeVries era, who got the Indiana head coaching job, which West Virginia was real. I thought a really solid team last year. They beat Arizona, I remember, in the battle for Atlantis, and they had a good run in that tournament. But West Virginia also just got their first road win in the Big 12 against ASU, who outside of us has not had a very sharp year so far. So I'm hoping Arizona can still keep McHale rocking and they can kind of show up for uh, an unranked opponent like this. But I expect Arizona. I don't expect really what we saw in the last two games. I don't expect this to be super competitive outside of the first like 10 minutes. So I think Arizona probably wins. Probably like I'd put the spread about 15-ish.
Yeah, yeah, that seems like it'll be close to accurate. West Virginia just has struggled all season long against the tougher competition. They're 13-6, but they're 8-4 again, or they're 8-6 in their last 14 games, and those losses have come against all of these teams from power conferences that they played. They lost to Clemson, they lost to Xavier, they lost to Wake Forest, they lost to Ohio State. That was a heartbreaker in double OT. And then when they played the tougher competition, Iowa State, who was three at the time, they lost to them by over 20 points. They lost to Houston by nearly 30 points. So and Houston, Iowa State are great, but I just don't think they're on Arizona's level. So I just think this is an even tougher matchup. And they're coming off a 12-point win over Arizona State. They beat Colorado by 11, but those teams are just they're I mean Arizona showed against Arizona State they're way better than them. And I think they'll prove it once again against West Virginia. I mean, this West Virginia team, they do have four guys who average double figures, but they only average a little over 70 points per game, and that's just not going to be good enough for ours like against Arizona because Arizona they normally when they face the lower level of the Big 12 as they even showed against the Cincinnati who isn't the worst team and they are a good defensive team that they really just take full advantage and yeah this West Virginia team on KenPom they have the 85th best offensive rating and that's just not going to be good enough to keep up with this Arizona team. It's just that simple. I agree. I have Arizona winning this game by at least 15 points, and especially it being home, I think it favors Arizona. We could agree even more. But Jordan, let's not wait any longer. Let's get to the game that we literally have been waiting for since December 14th to me because December 13th was Arizona's last game against a ranked opponent when they played number 12 at the time, Alabama. And that was on December 13th. It's been over a month since Arizona's faced a ranked team, and now they face BYU. They're on the road. They're facing the Cougars in Provo, 9 p.m in the East Coast. It's on ESPN, 7 p.m. back in Tucson. What do you think about this matchup? Because this is one that I had circled on my calendar from the time I first saw this schedule, and I knew that AJ DeBonsa, among others, were joining this BYU team.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like especially last year with the season that BYU had and even that game in Tucson, like there's a little bit of almost bad blood, it seems like, that this just rivalry could kind of consume, especially BYU also being on the West Coast. Like that adds another dynamic. But this BYU team, like they're loaded. Like Nick Young has done a phenomenal job. This is only his second year, um,
Heaven.
but they're super high flowing offense. They like to get shots. They're big on shooting. They brought Richie Saunders back, who was kind of their go-to guy last year. But this team, like, even though they bring him back, they brought Robert Wright in, point guard from Baylor, who's a sensational player. They go by AJ DeBonsa. Like, if he's on, then they're rolling. But if he's not, if somebody else is having to take kind of charge in the scoring department, if he's having an off night, they're definitely a team that live and die by their shooting. And so I think that's a pretty big difference, I think, in contrast to Arizona, because it's like it feels like the biggest question is like Arizona can't hit the three, and yet they're still undefeated. To where a lot of teams nowadays, it's like they live and die by the 3-point shot, and BYU kind of almost is in a category of that, as well as just having AJ, who's a phenomenal scorer, but they just seem at times like they're a little one sided with how like the way they need to win, and I don't think that's super conducive to, especially nowadays in college basketball, to want to get super far in an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think this BYU team, although they're great, and you mentioned the great stars they have, I do think they are a little bit overrated because from November 21st to January 14th, they won 13 straight games, but their best win was against, at the time, number 23 Wisconsin, who is a good team. They beat them by 28 points, blew them out, but that's their best win of the entire season. When they faced number 3 UConn at the time, they lost by 2 points. UConn's great, no problem with that, but they're coming off of a loss to number 15 Texas Tech by 13 points. And like you mentioned in that one, you mentioned AJ DeBonsa and how he could perform. He only scored 13 points in that one, 6 for 17. And I think, and I'll give all the praise to BYU's three-headed monster of AJ DeBonsa, Robert Wright, and Richie Saunders. They're three of the best players in college basketball, and you could argue that no team has three that could stack up and match up 3 for 3 with BYU's top three. But
Agreed.
I question their lack of depth because I really think that their team falls off after those top three. And I think that's where Arizona could take advantage. And I do think Arizona can match up with BYU. I want to see Koa Pete. I want to see Ivan Karchenkov on AJ DeBonsa. I want to see them be physical and try to get in their heads early. And I think Arizona has all the pieces defensively to match up with them. And that's not me taking anything away from BYU because AJ DeBonsa is having one of the best freshman seasons that I can remember. 22 and a half points, 6.8 boards, 3.6 assists, 1.4 steals per game. I mean, he's a three-level scorer. He's versatile. He can really do it all. One of the best scorers I can remember, especially as a freshman. But like I said, I think that Arizona can contain those three top guys. You're not going to shut all of them down because one night somebody is going to go off between those three. But I'm leaning Arizona here. The line isn't out as we're recording this, as we previously mentioned, Thursday night. But I think that even though Arizona's on the road, and BYU's coming off that loss, I do think Arizona will still be a couple point favorite in this one. And I think Arizona will win this game by 5 points. I previously thought Arizona would lose this game earlier in the season before the season, but with BYU coming off the loss, Arizona playing as well as they have, I think Arizona's winning this game and I just think they have what it takes to go into Provo, a rowdy environment, and to shut them down and prove once again that there's nobody close to Arizona this season.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point of outside of their three-headed monster, they don't really have much. And I think one thing, especially looking from their most recent loss in Lubbock, one thing that really jumps out to me is the rotation minutes. So we've got AJ DeBonsa played 32 minutes in that game. Keba Kieda, who's a really solid center, played
Yep.
21 minutes. Henry Davis played 30 minutes. Richie Saunders played 39 minutes, and Robert Wright played 38 minutes. If Arizona can step on the gas and get these guys up and down the court with kind of the minutes that they've been playing lately, that could really especially expose their lack of depth and completely go to Arizona's advantage with how depthful the Arizona is. And with their style of play, I think they could definitely do this.
Yeah, and I think a clear advantage for Arizona and a weakness of BYU is their front court. Because and especially like the center position in particular, I think that's where Arizona could feed Toby Awaka, could feed Mo Krivas to make the difference there. And a guy that I want to see, I would love to see him matched up against AJ DeBonsa is Toby Awaka. I think Awaka, with his physicality and size on AJ DeBonsa, I think he could break him down, and I think he can slow him down in this game. Jordan, before we go, what's your official prediction? I'm on Arizona by 5 points against BYU. What do you think?
I think it'll be three because it's in Salt Lake City, and that fan base and that arena is can get rocking, especially on a Monday night. I'm sure BYU will show up. I still agree that Arizona will win by one possession.
Yeah, so you got it a little close to me, but we both think Arizona will finish another week undefeated and move to 21 and 0. That is to be seen in the future. We'll have to find out this week. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's episode of Bear Down Ballers. Follow us on X at Bear Down AZ Pod. He's Jordan Pollock. I'm Ryan.